Elam Ekimna Angel, the day is good. So I'm joining you today from the usual and accustomed lands of the Suck, the people of the clear salt water. The intent of our time today is to engage in the talk story about special education funding through a decolonial and indigenizing lens that is grounded in place, including the historical, cultural, and political conditions of Central Kitsap and Quileute communities. Our guiding question today, Angel, is what is one insight or story from your research that has stayed with you?
Thanks so much, Sonia. I'm joining you today from the ancestral lands of the Quileute people who have occupied this territory since time immemorial. Um, so, at the Quileute Tribal School District, one thing that is staying with me is how students come to our district already labeled, whether it be IEPs or seen as needing interventions, or they've often been pushed out of other districts. There's stigma around tribal schools and tribal school reputations. Um, there's this attitude of people saying like it's an easier district or it's where students go and they can't make it in more strict systems. But what I'm finding and what I'm seeing is students who've been told they're too difficult come here, they start to thrive, not because we're doing more interventions, but because the environment is different. That the interventions are more about ways of being and what is offered school wide and communal. So, more of like tier one. In other schools, it might be tier three. So, it's relational, it's culturally grounded, and it's healing. We include Indigenous language and culture in our curriculum. We host community events that bring people together. A lot of our staff actually, we've been increasing reflect what the students look like. So many of our staff actually started as paras and over time they've become long-term educators. So this kind of representation of them builds trust. And so when students feel safe and seen, the behaviors that got them labeled often start to disappear. Over the last 5 years, qualifying, we've had 70 to 90%, over 90% of students that qualify for free and reduced lunch. And then our special education that are receiving services has been from 20 to 30%, and it's like half a percent. It's slowly declining, but so we're doing the work, not with more resources, but by shifting how we relate to students and what we believe about them. And in that, there's a deep intersection about like what we call trauma informed and what we define as disability and the realities of poverty and racial inequity. So many of our students who end up in special education aren't there because of a fixed diagnosis, but because they've been navigating the systems that weren't built for them. So that's what stays with me is our kids aren't broken, that they've been surviving in systems that haven't seen them. And when we change the environment, when we change and center culture and belonging of relationships, students don't just show up differently, they show us who they really are. And so I want to invite you also to what's staying with you in the work, what's been sitting with you as we think about decolonizing special education funding.
Well, one story that has been sticking with me is from the John McCoy Since Time Immemorial curriculum in the Native American Story section. Roger Fernandez, who is Lower Elwha Sklallam, shares a story of a Yakima girl labeled Ayayesh or dumb. And she learns to basket weave from cedar tree, and eventually she creates this watertight basket adorned with a mountain and a snake design. And through her perseverance and guidance from nature, the girl overcomes her internalized doubt and becomes a teacher. So the story emphasizes Indigenous values and learning through relationship, resilience, and observation, which really challenges the settler colonial limited beliefs about how young children learn. And that is the context of Central Kitsap School District, which is predominantly militarized community nested between two bases and a naval shipyard. We have about 11,000 students, and 40% of them are military affiliated. And then 17.2% of our students receive special education services. So the general framework for public school, according to Deanne Mowani, is to focus on the individual deficit rather than the systemic or socio-historical factors, particularly of Indigenous students in schools. So this becomes a systems issue because the system is set up to have the outcomes that it is having. So my hope, as you were just speaking and sharing about, would be to reimagine our classroom. And I like to use a garden as a metaphor and a methodology. So imagine a classroom as a garden where each student is a unique plant, and some need sunlight and others need shade. Some bloom quickly and others take time. So with care, patience, and the right conditions, all students have the right to flourish. So if we can change the system or that environment that you were speaking about, that we can meet the needs of our students holistically. Thank you.
That's beautiful. Thank you.